Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to another Harness workshop. We're always thrilled to have you joining us. And if you're joining this live session, you're also first to get a preview to our new events and ticketing tool. We're very excited. We know you're all very excited. We have Jordan Patrick, our Chief Product Officer, joining us today. He's been with Harness since the beginning of time. Say hi, Jordan. He's going to give us a quick overview of the highly anticipated feature, events and ticketing, so stay tuned till the end. For those of you brand new to Harness, Harness makes it easier for people to support the causes they care about and allows nonprofits to better reach donors, making more change possible. Since 2016, Harness has helped over 1,000 nonprofit organizations like yours make a difference. Our fundraising solutions have been part of life-saving efforts around the world, and we continue to develop and support new tools to help nonprofits thrive and grow. Now, if this is your first Harness webinar, you should know they are free, live, and designed to bring in top industry experts to answer your biggest questions each month. So if you're interested in this topic or similar topics, just head to our webinar library or our blog library, where you'll find a range of content designed to empower nonprofits with the resources they need. Okay, now that we got some webinar formalities out of the way, it's great to see some familiar faces in the crowd. My name is Simonne, Director of Marketing here at Harness, and your host today from sunny Tampa, Florida. I also have my good friend Zach helping me behind the scenes. Hello, Zach. Today's session is navigating the trickiest parts of special event planning, led by nonprofit event specialist Frank Canning, Principal Consultant of Smoke Jumper Consulting. Frank is passionate about helping nonprofit organizations chart their course, address challenges, and seize opportunities. As a seasoned nonprofit professional himself with over 40 years of experience in management and fundraising, he earned the name the Smoke Jumper from a supervisor, which I'm sure he'd be happy to share more about that story. So while working at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society as an interim executive director, Frank would go into various situations, both good and bad, and hit the ground running to address major issues, keep a high-functioning chapter on track, and just calm everyone down while always protecting the organization and the mission. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Frank to the stage. Frank, welcome.
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Simonne and Harness for having me on today. I'm very excited to be here, and I look forward to sharing a lot of my experience and some of the mistakes I've made, as well as some of the successes I've had while doing some special events through my career. Just to give you a little bit of background about me, I have 40 years in nonprofit management and fundraising. 32 of those years I was with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society is an organization that is very heavily involved in special events. In fact, special events would bring in about 70% of the field revenue during the time that I was there. For the last 2 years, I've been with Smoke Jumper, a company that I started. As Simonne mentioned, I was nicknamed Smoke Jumper because I would jump into chapters that may be in crisis and kind of help out and calm everyone down and get the special events campaigns back on track. But what one of the things that I really enjoyed doing was helping to bring people together as a team so that they would work together to make the events successful. And we're going to talk a little bit about that later. As with my consulting program, it's the things that I can do are I can do organizational assessments, I can do board retreats, I can do strategic planning, special event planning, that kind of thing, where I can come in and help nonprofits so that they can plan and be successful in fundraising and mission delivery. So this webinar is probably going to be a little bit different than some of the webinars you've been involved in, because what I'm going to do is go through and ask a series of questions and then give you some input as to what my experience has been. I'm not really going to give you the answers because you have the answers. Because each one of these questions is going to have a different answer for each one of you. So whether or not you're a large organization or a small organization, or if you've got a lot of years in the business, or if you're just starting out and starting to develop special events, I'm hoping that there will be something that you can take away from this program. I feel like some of the questions I'm going to ask may resonate with you, so that you will bring those back to your staff and to your volunteers and kind of say, hey, we need to look at our special event portfolio, or how we're doing events, or what we're doing. So without further ado, I'm going to get started with the first question. And what I want to do is just ask some questions in regards to how much of your budget is made up of special event income, as well as what kind of events make up your portfolio. So in some organizations, they're looking to increase the percentage of special event income, and they're looking to develop their special event budget. In some organizations, they're looking to either maintain this percentage or decrease the percentage, but still increase their income through special events. And in doing that, they're looking to, balance their portfolio and maybe get more grant writing done, or maybe get more plan giving done. So this really comes down to, what is it that you want? I worked recently with an organization that was totally dependent on grants, and they wanted to develop special events, period. They were starting off from scratch. So in looking at that, let's say you do have a special event portfolio, and what would your portfolio look like? Is it balanced? By that I mean, is there one event that's really large that makes up a majority of your income in the special event area, or do you have several events where they're all equally sized? You have to be careful to not have all your eggs in one basket, but in doing that, you also want to make sure that you're maximizing your events. The last question on this is, do you own most of your events? And what does that mean? That means, is the event yours? Does it belong to your organization? Because if let's say you have a golf tournament with the Lions Club, and it's their golf tournament, but you're the beneficiary, that's all well and good. And that's, that's not a problem, unless the relationship goes south and they take the event and go to another nonprofit. So you have to be careful and make sure that not all of your events are like this, and that you own some of your events, and that you have the ownership, and that you have the ability to make changes, and you have the ability to put the event on, or cancel the event, or whatever it is that you want to do. On to the second question. Is your organization structured for conducting special events? What do your staffing and committee structures look like? And are you supported to get to the A tasks? So let's start at the beginning on this. What does your organizational structure look like? Do you have the proper staffing? Is the staffing in the right areas? And I want to talk to you about committees, because committees to me are pretty much the answer to a lot of issues and a lot of problems. And by committees, I don't mean groups that are made totally of board members or trustees. What, to me, a committee is, when it's event-based, is made up of dedicated volunteers that can come from outside the board, as well as some board representation. So when you're looking at a committee, I feel that you're at an advantage, because you can go out and recruit people and get them involved, and they're not making a commitment to be on your board. They're making a commitment to work on this event. So it's a much shorter commitment. It's time bound, it's task bound. So they're going to come on and help you with your golf tournament. When the golf tournament's over, they can go their way, and hopefully they'll want to get involved again. But committees are very important. So let's talk a little bit about where are some people, what are some sources for really good committees? Obviously, to me, sources for committees would be, one, would be some of the participants from the event in the past. And I feel like when you're at the event, you should be looking through the participants, through the crowd, or whatever event it is. If it's a black tie, if it's a golf tournament, if it's a 5K run, have your antenna up for looking for people that are really having a great time, raised a lot of money, and are dedicated to your cause, because they might be future committee members. When I used to do the walks at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I would always look for people that would come up to me and say, oh my gosh, we just found out about this 2 weeks ago. We raised $2,000. I wish we had known more about this. And what a great time we're having at like the night. And so that to me would say, this person's got potential to fundraise. They're excited about the cause. They love the event, possible committee member. Obviously, your board is a source, but your board can also be a source to network, to bring in people that are not on the board to be part of your committee. The last thing, and not the last source, but another source would be, who are some of your vendors that you do business with? Maybe they can get involved, as well as who are the people you serve. And we're going to talk at length about this later, but so the people that you affect through the mission delivery can sometimes lead you to other people that want to get involved with your cause, that want to support your cause. So the last part of number 2 is, are you supported to get to the A tasks? And what does that mean? That means, are you delegating enough? And are you using your committee and your staff enough to free you up to get to the important things that you need to do, either as the executive director or the event director or whatever? So everybody has a different A list. Somebody's A list might be going out to get the $50,000 title sponsor, or getting next year's chairman recruited, or lining up a huge company to bring employees to walk in the walk, whatever the event is. Someone else's A list might be get the parade permit, make sure the t-shirt order is in, make sure the teams are being tele-recruited so that they'll come to this year's walk. So whatever that is, if you're delegating correctly and if you have enough volunteer support, you should be able to get to your A tasks. It's up to you to make sure that that happens. On to number 3. Do you evaluate your events every year and look at income and expenses and what went wrong, what went right, and when you had to wing it, what did you make up along the way, and did it work? It's important to record those things, because the next year you don't want to be in the position to have to reinvent the wheel. So in looking at that, you want to make sure that you're spending a lot of time to celebrate the successes and what went right, and not just have your evaluation meeting be about what went wrong. But you do have to address that too, because that does happen, and it's very helpful to make those corrections. One of the things I used to do at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society was we had a program called Pennies for Patients, and we had to write a manual that we sent out to the teachers so that they could collect pennies in the school and then send them into the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And as you can guess, it was a logistical undertaking. And in doing that, we had to have a very detailed manual. And every year we would look at that manual and we would ask, what questions were you asked over and over again? What was not clear? What happened that people would not understand what we were trying to get across, so that we would rewrite the manual pretty much every year. We would re-edit the manual. This kind of thing you can do when you're evaluating an event, and kind of say, what questions did I get asked over and over again at registration? Did people walk up to my walk and say, man, we had a hard time finding this place? Or did people come up and say, we had no idea we could fundraise in advance? Or did people come up and say, I'm not sure if I signed up online because it wasn't clear whether I did or not? Things like that, where if you keep hearing certain tasks or certain comments, then you know you need to make some corrections, either on your website or on your event page or in your written directions or Facebook posts or whatever, all your communication. On to the next slide. How much time and staff volunteers are you being used for a specific event? And I know this varies greatly. And how much time are you spending on special events? This is another thing for you to keep an eye on. If your job is, let's say, an executive director, and part of it's administrative, and part of it's fundraising, and part of it is being out in the community, you're going to have to keep an eye on that you don't get pulled into the special event vortex. And in following up on that is this an acceptable amount of time? Are you in the weeds? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Sometimes you have to be in the weeds. Should you be in the weeds? It depends on your staffing structure. If you have a small staff and a small committee and you're just getting started, you will be in the weeds, and that's okay. Somebody has to be in the weeds and get everything done. You need to make sure, again, that you're setting up a support system through volunteers and staff so that you can get to the A stuff, because that's what's going to make your event successful. On to number 5. Are there events that you have done for years and years, and you do them because you've always done them for years and years? And this is the kind of thing where you really need to look at, why are we doing this event? I think every year you should say this about every event. And if the event is successful and it really brings your organization to the forefront and gets you a lot of exposure and raises a lot of money and actually helps advance your mission, then that's an easy question to ask. I've seen events that are being done that don't have a high net. They're labor intensive, they're dated, they're not exciting, and everyone kind of dreads going to the event. And it's like, you have to put the brakes on and say, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this? So it takes a lot of courage to look at an event and kind of say, are we headed in the right direction here, or do we need to drop this event and invent something new and go in a new direction? Here's a loaded question, and I love this one. Do you have any events that run themselves? And I say this because I hear this sometimes when I'm working with clients, and they say, oh, it's so great, we just show up the day of, the committee is super self-sufficient, they're running everything. And sometimes that's a red flag for me, because I feel like when you have an event that runs itself, sometimes I feel like it's not getting the attention it needs, and you're going to be leaving income on the table. Because you, as the professional fundraiser, need to be involved and make sure that the committee's heading in the right direction. So I've seen events where it's the same event every year because it runs itself and the committee goes through the playbook and they're doing the same thing over and over again. And that's when you need to, if it's not growing, if it's becoming too rote, then you need to step in and really look at it and get more involved in it and maybe add some new ingredients to it. Okay, so this is a big one. Is the event tired, or are you tired? So let's talk about, is the event tired? If the event is tired, how can you fix that? And I think sometimes you need to look at just changing up basic components of the event. So what does that mean? You can look at changing up the committee, adding new people to the committee. You can change the venue. You can change the theme. You can go from having a stuffy black tie to having a real fun cocktail party, but still have the same fundraising ingredients involved, so that you're still going to make your money, but it's just going to be a little less of a black tie event. And also, you can look at adding different ingredients that haven't been there before. Maybe it's adding a silent auction, or adding a live auction, or a challenge. There's a lot of different things you can do to an event to kind of freshen it up. Let's talk about whether or not you're tired. Maybe the event is fine and you're just tired of doing it. And that's when you need to look at yourself and kind of say, I need to get fired up about this event. Because if you're not fired up about this event, and if you're like, oh, great, it's time to start the black tie committee meetings again, that attitude and your message is going to get out there, and it's going to affect everyone around you, and you can't have that. When I was an executive director in South Carolina, I worked with the team and training program, which was a super exciting program in the late 90s and early 2000s. And it was a lot of fun because we would go out and recruit these people at these informational meetings, and they would sign up to run a marathon and raise a ton of money for us. So that was awesome. By my third year of doing that, I was doing these informational meetings, and people would be just so excited about this. And they'd say, do you think I can do it? Do you think I can run a marathon? And I'd say, yeah, sure. Don't worry about it. It's no big deal. And I caught myself and I said, you know what? I shouldn't be saying that. I should be creating the excitement, and I should be making them feel like it is a big deal, because it was a big deal. So make sure that you're fired up about the event, and that it's like a first time through for you too. Like, it's an exciting journey with your volunteers and with your participants, and it's going to be awesome. Number 7, is there a new event that you want to do, or a new location that you want to bring a proven event? What are your main obstacles? So let's talk about that. Sometimes we feel like if we're going to start a new event, we have to go all in, and we have to invest a ton of money, and we're going to invest all the staff resources or volunteer resources. And we're all, oh my gosh, this is going to consume me. And that's not really true. If you're going in, and if you want to look at bringing a new event in, it's kind of like you put one toe in the water and see what everyone else does around you. So let's say we're going in and we're going to start a new event. I'm going to put feelers out, and I'm going to find out if my volunteers are excited about it. And then if my volunteers are excited about it, what resources and what commitments can they make to come in and do this? Then I put my second toe in the water. Okay, let's go forward with this thing. And little by little, you start to engage yourself. And that way, you are not going to be fully committed until you really feel like you've got the basics in place. I feel like the way to go in is obviously to have a plan and be ready to commit resources, but you don't have to go all the way in and say, oh my gosh, now we have to do this new event because I said so 6 months ago. That's not it at all. The other thing about taking a proven event and going to a new market is, and I'm going to cover this a little bit later, is that you really should look at, are you ready to be in that market? What's your base of support? What's your base of interest? Are these people that you're going to try to recruit to get involved in a committee or whatever it is? Is there a way in? Is there a way that you can go in and get a base of support? And see what obstacles there are. Is it the competition? Is it a distance issue? Is it, if there are just too many obstacles, then don't do it. And again, I'm going to cover secondary markets in a minute. Okay, so we're going to look at doing a poll, number 8. And so this was a thing I put together for LinkedIn, and it was like one of my most unpopular posts, because I was kind of reminding everybody what they should have been doing the last 2 years, and nobody really wanted to talk about it. But during the last 2 years, we've had a lot of downtime, okay? And I started making a list up of things that, in order to get your ship in order, in order to get your organization back on track and be ready for when we have to pivot again, these are the things that you should be doing. This is where you should take your time back during when the pandemic was really restrictive. Look at doing a deep clean and doing your databases and files. It's the fun stuff that nobody wants to do. This was an opportunity to let select events fade away for whatever reason. There was also ample time and opportunity, and if you haven't done this, you should do it now, is to go in and look at your webpage. A lot of people don't understand that The web page is your gateway to the public. It is no longer your front door. It is your web page. And you have to go in as an outsider. And I did this with my own web page, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I had to go in and redesign it, because you have to look at, what do I want? And just a word on this. When people go to your web page, there's two things. There's two main reasons why people are going to go to your web page. One is they want help. They want to get your programs. The second is that they want to help you. And that's what you have to make sure, that they have two pathways on your web page to do these things, because that's really why they're going to be getting in contact with you. We're seeing some results on the poll, and that's so I want to spend some time on this last one. Join up with your organization with other nonprofits that are similar to yours to support the programs and services and your mission delivery. So what does that mean? So that to me means, on one hand, you would get together with people that might compete with you for fundraising dollars, but you can definitely partner with them on providing programs and services. So I'll give you an example. The Leukemia and Lymphoma Society would partner with the American Cancer Society on programming issues or on programming challenges, but we would not join up together for fundraising. So that's okay. One of the things that I think organizations can do, and there's a client of mine that I'm suggesting that they do this, and that is to create a database of information. And it's like an information and referral program, and it's to create a database of all of the similar organizations or programs or services that your clientele could use when they call up and say, hey, I've just been diagnosed with a blood cancer, please help me, what's available? And then your staff could turn around and say, well, here's what's available in the community near you. And they're listing, the American Cancer Society, Children's Hospital, there's a family support group over here, there's information and referral program over here. And so it's one of those things where this is a service you can provide, and it's low cost, and it's very, very helpful to people that are needing support. So I just wanted to put a 1-minute commercial in on that one. Number 9, do you speak with your peers in other cities, inside and outside of your organization, and ask what special events they are doing? Do you do any research on the web? So let's look at this. And so many times I have found that organizations, they don't reach out to sister organizations. And it could be, and it may not be within your organizations. It can be, if you're in South Carolina, you're talking to your affiliate in North Carolina, and that's super healthy, that's fine. But it doesn't stop you from calling a similar organization in North Carolina to find out what they do. So I'll give you an example. I work with the Palmetto Trail in South Carolina. It's a diagonal trail through the state. It's 300 miles long. And we have reached out to the Mountains to the Sea Trail in North Carolina, which is 1,000 miles long, and it goes all the way through the state. And, it's one of those things where we were able to exchange information, like on crazy stuff, like where do you get your lumber? Where do you get your volunteers? How do you recognize your volunteers? Where have you had luck getting grants? And really, we're not competing with them in North Carolina. So it's really, there's nothing that's going to stop you from sharing information and getting information. The other thing is, obviously, is to check on the web. And doing research on the web is kind of super easy, and it's how you're going to find these other organizations. But I'll give you an example of what I did, and I was able to help a client. I had a client in Virginia who was going to do a duck race, and they weren't sure about the logistics. And this is where you buy a duck, and it's 1,000 or 10,000 literally rubber ducks that are dumped into a river. And the winning duck, you win a lot of money. So I got on the web and I saw that there was one in Charleston that weekend for me nearby. I love it, Zach. Thanks. And so what I did was I jumped in my car and I went down and attended this duck race, and I took pictures and just sent it up to Virginia so that they would be able to see how the registration was set up, how the ducks were dropped into the river, and it was like really super helpful. So using the web for you to go and do research about a similar 5K or walk or a black tie event, I mean, to me, it makes total sense. Okay, on to number 10. So what is the most challenging part of doing a special event for you, your staff, your volunteers, and what can you do to address this? One of the things that you need to do is to look at what is keeping you up at night. Okay, that's the best way to say, I'm really sweating having enough volunteers for registration, or I'm really worried about the recruitment efforts, or I'm really worried about getting enough people on my committee. And you need to look at each aspect of it and say, okay, what can we do now in the off season to make sure that this is not an issue, so we can get ahead of that and then face the next issue, whatever it is, because there's always going to be another issue. And sometimes, your list is way different than your staff's list. It's way different than your volunteers list. But when you're doing this event eval in the off season, it's to look at what held us back. What was an obstacle for us that caused us, some anxiety? I think that if you can get ahead of the simple things, so knowing that my committee was not super strong, I need to focus on that in the off season, and I need to make sure I get enough committee members, and then from then I can task them and I can get them to go out and do the other things that I need off my list. Okay. Number 11, what drives you to thank someone? How do you thank people? And then my little note of thank yous remain embedded. So what drives you to thank someone? Now, obviously, we all know the $10,000 sponsor needs to be thanked. And we know that the person that shows up with 100 people for your walk needs to be thanked. But who else do you thank? And what drives you to thank somebody? Is it effort? Is it dedication? Is it, when you see it, do you thank them? And I'll give you an example. Recently, I worked at a 5K for a nonprofit, and I took the job on of directing traffic at 6 a.m. in a field for a 5K race, so that people could park their cars and go to the start of the race. So at 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm out there with a flashlight and a reflective vest, hoping I don't get mowed down. And people get pretty aggressive when they're trying to find a parking spot. So we got everybody lined up, we got everything done. It was a point-to-point race, so I missed the start. I never even got to the start. I then went to the finish to work the finish, and the executive director came and found me and thanked me for being out in that field at 6 a.m. And that obviously remains with me because I'm telling you about it. So think about that when you're looking at people that are working hard for you, is to thank them. Okay, that's my my message on that one. I want to jump to number 10 or number 12. Sorry. And this came up in several questions. What percentage of net income determines if an event is successful or not for your organization? So there are a lot of different events. Thanks, Simonne. That's awesome. So there are a lot of events that have a different range of net income. So, for example, to me, a golf tournament is going to be a little bit more expensive than a walk, a lot more expensive. And a black tie is going to have some expenses built in versus a golf tournament or versus another type of event that you do that might be super low cost. So it's okay to have a range. Everything doesn't have to be a 75-25 split where it's 75% net income and 25%. Sometimes you have a 50% cost. Sometimes you have 40% cost. But I received several questions that people were asking, what can I do to increase my net income? And there's obviously two ways. One is you go in and you look at your expenses, but you have to be careful not to trim your expenses so much that you're affecting the quality of your event and the quality of the participant experience. So be careful when you're cutting costs on food, drink, t-shirts, signage, whatever it is that's going to create the ambiance and it's going to give them a good experience. Be really careful because you can cut it down to a certain amount of, to where it's frugal but not cheap. The only other way to increase your net income is to raise more money. And so that's where I think the most effective way for you is to look at, I've got my expenses down to where I want them. I've got all the vendors the way I need them to be. I've got them down to the bottom line. So now I have to focus on income. I have to focus on growing the income. Because one thing I learned with golf tournaments is those costs are set. Those costs are set. So whether you're raising $15,000 or $150,000, your costs are going to be the cost of playing golf and the food. So keep that in mind, that it's really focusing on increasing income, not decreasing expenses as much. So number 13 is my 80-20 rule. And my question, I should have put a question in here, but the question is, what percentage of time are you spending on recruitment, and what percentage of time are you spending on logistics? So I believe that 80% of your time spent on special events should be focusing on recruitment of participants, marketing, soliciting sponsors, and 20% can be on logistics. And my rule on this is it's hard to keep a committee focused on recruitment and sales and fundraising. It really is, because they want to go to the fun stuff. We all do. We all want to say, oh, I got the bouncy house, so I get to tick that off the list, for the walk. But I ordered the balloons for the walk, got that done. It's the fun stuff that we want to get done. But you have to get them back on track and get them to focus on who are we going to get to the walk. So one of the things I used to do when my committee meetings would get off track, which was quite often, and they'd get into the fun stuff, is to say, I think it's great. I don't know that we need to be talking about the centerpieces for the black tie right now. I'm more concerned about who's going to sit at the table. And that would kind of bring them back to, right, we've got to make sure we fill the house, and we'll make sure it's a great event and have, everything logistically okay, but that can come later. So that's my my 80-20 rule. Looks like it's time for another poll. And this is a little different than the question I asked before, and that is, what is one component that you would improve relating to special events? And what I mean by that is that it could be something you're already doing well, but you could do better if you could put more time and attention into it. So you might be soliciting a pretty good amount of sponsorship and you have a knack for it, or you have a committee that has a knack for it. And if you could really unleash them and really set them out earlier with proposals, they could get you more sponsorship. So think about that in regards to, what are the things that I do okay now, or maybe I don't do okay now, that I really need to focus on. And we'll see how the poll comes out.
I'll leave the poll open for another 5 or so seconds. It looks like we still have some answers coming in.
Okay.
Okay.
That's interesting. That's really interesting. Great. So sponsorship is one that really popped here. Staff is always going to be staff is always going to be up at the top, and that's an ongoing thing. And for those of you that manage fundraising staff, I totally understand. I sometimes it's the most rewarding job in the world, and sometimes it's the most frustrating. And you get great staff, and they're super, and then they get hired away, or they leave, or what have you. Sponsorship is an interesting one because even once you get a taste of it, and even when you're getting started in doing this, you can really always do more. You can always do more. So it's interesting that that's look at the tools you're using, look at the number of people you have that have connections that are going out to the right companies. Someone's asking, can I give examples for 80% versus 20% logistics? I'm just going back to the chat here. Just to jump back to that, the 80-20 rule is that really look at the fundraising aspect. Do I have enough teams recruited for my walk? Did I sell enough tables for my black tie? Do I have enough foursomes? We need to focus on this before we start worrying about what's going to be in the goodie bag at the golf tournament, or what the what the entertainment's going to be at the and again, all through the event, you obviously have to pay attention to some logistics. I get that, but it can't become 80% of your focus, or else it's not going to work. Okay, I'm going to jump to number 15. No, yeah, number 15. Thank you. So what would be the biggest obstacle or your biggest hesitation of bringing a successful event to a secondary market? We talked a little bit about this before, but I love secondary markets. I believe in them. I had a lot of success as an executive director in bringing a lot of campaigns to secondary markets. And what is a secondary market? It might be a market that's almost equal in size to your primary market. It might be half the size, but you might be getting a lot of feedback from people in that community that's not being served, or having your fundraising event in it, that they want that event. They want to have the walk, or they want to do something to help support your cause. And in doing that, it kind of gives you a signal that I could bring this event, and I could form a committee in this secondary market, and I could raise a substantial amount of income. And so one of the things you have to commit to, if you're going to look at expanding into a secondary market, is, and I have this saying, and it says, if you're going to go there, be there. And if you're going to be there, go there. And what does that mean? That means that you have to commit to travel to the market on a regular basis, and you have to commit to doing everything for that event that you do in your primary market. So I'll give you an example. If I'm going to do a walk in Columbia, my primary market, I'm going to have a corporate kickoff. I'm going to have recruitment events. I'm going to have a bank day. I'm going to have the walk itself. I'm going to have a celebration afterwards. You have to commit to doing the same thing in Charleston if you're going to commit to a secondary market. And Charleston would have been a secondary market for me. So that means I have to really get a full-fledged committee going. I have to look at putting on the same events. And the first year, of course, it's going to be a growing and learning experience, but that's how you're going to make your headway and your momentum. And you have to commit to going into a secondary market. I see Zach is asking about how do you choose a secondary market. One obviously would be population. Two, the distance can't be too prohibitive. So if you had the state of South Carolina, let's say, and you're in Columbia, Greenville's an hour and a half away, Charleston's 2 hours away, not prohibitive, but very large, very wealthy markets. So that to me would be a great place to start. to look at going. The other would be an indication on how many requests do you get for assistance from these markets? How many times do you get a request for special events in these markets? How many, let's say at LLS, we would have gauged it by the number of patient families there. How much interaction do we have with them on a regular basis as to whether we can go in and fundraise? Okay, number 16, I've got to move along here. If you could have $5,000 worth of any resource, or 3,000 or 8,000, whatever it is in your budget, what would it be and what would be the projected return? So let me just give you a quick example on this. Let's say if I could have $3,000 in really good telerecruiting for walkers or teams for my walk, I probably would realize $30,000 in income. So I've got a bunch of lists of previous teams from the last 5 years, and I can't get to them because I don't have the time and I don't have the staff, and these lists are just sitting there. But if I had that money, I could hire a temporary employee to go in and call these people and get them to sign up. So you can figure out what kind of resource it is that you need and look at what the projected return would be and really think about outlaying some of the money for it. It's just a business, it's a business decision that you can make. And I used to, go in and look. If I was lagging behind on walkers, I would go right to my telerecruiters and let's beef that up. Let's get people on the phone. Okay, besides number 17, besides income, what benefits, resources are you getting out of your special events? And this one, to me, it's pretty basic, but I want to make sure that you're looking at what else am I getting out of my events besides a net check? And that would be, hopefully, you're getting good volunteers, more people involved, but by resources, it would be connections within the community, with corporations and with businesses. And then the other thing would be to increase your reach for your mission. So for example, the Autism Society loves to have fundraising events, but that are also events of inclusion. So families come to these and they get to serve more people. They get more people to sign up for their programs through having these festivals and these events and these 5Ks where everybody's included, everybody's allowed to come. And that's one of their primary goals, is not only to raise money, but to increase their mission reach. Okay, number 18. And this is a big one. Are your staff campaigns and events siloed, or do you encourage cross-promotion integration? And you let the donor/participant decide where to get involved. So I know I used to walk into some situations where the walk people didn't talk to the black tie people. The black tie committees didn't interact with the regatta committee. The regatta committee didn't talk to the golf committee. And I was like, why are we doing this? Why are we not all working together? And let's let the participants decide how they want to get involved. And why can't I send black tie invitations to my folks from the walk? I could turn a $100 walker into a $1,000 table. Why? Because I asked. So I would always let the donor decide how best they want to support you, because sometimes you have a $100 walker. Why is he a $100 walker? Because that's what you asked them to do. That's your ask of a commitment from this person, and they might be a $20,000 sponsor for another event that they would really like. So there's that. This one, if you leave with nothing else, I hope this will resonate with you. And that is, do you inform the people that you serve through your organization about your fundraising events? And here's what I've seen in a lot of nonprofits, and that is the people that they serve, whatever your mission is, whether, you know, if it's hunger or disease or education or whatever your goal is, whatever your mission is, and your clientele or your patients or whatever it is, I've seen a lot of nonprofits that will just leave these people alone. And they figure they're going through a lot. They're really suffering. We're here to help them. I don't want to ask them for anything. And I think this is a big mistake, because what you're doing, and you don't have to do a hard sell. You don't have to do a big pitch. Just inform them about what's going on with your organization. Hey, here are some programs and services we're doing. Hey, here is some fundraising stuff we're doing, you know? So in doing that, you're giving them the opportunity, or their families and friends the opportunity, to strike back, to do something. Because when somebody has a problem, people around them feel helpless. So, you know, we used to find out that with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, we would inform our patients about what was going on, and their friends and family wanted to get involved. They wanted to raise money to fund research. They wanted to do something against cancer. So it was a healthy thing for them. And let me tell you, it was very successful for us, because we would get this core of volunteers that were dedicated. They were super involved, and it was extremely effective. So don't hesitate to inform the people around your organization in the mission area, to know what it is that you're doing, and let them decide whether or not to get involved. My last question, number 20, do you encourage and have a system in place for a development of new events? So I always was listening and watching for small events that people were doing to raise money to support other events. And what do I mean by that? Let's say there was a walk team, and they had like 30 people in it, and they would do some kind of an event to support the walk team's total. And that event might have been, like, I have an example. We had an event called Man Woman of the Year, and Man Woman of the Year would recruit community leaders, business leaders, to raise money, and they would have a ton of events to raise money for this final goal. And so in doing that, sometimes they would come up with events that were awesome. Like, one was a fashion show. It was a full-blown fashion show before our event, before our grand finale. And this was such a great event that it had a life of its own. So it happened. So what I'm saying is that sometimes you're going to find that people are going to invent events that are going to be successful, and you should have some resources and some time set aside to explore that, to look at that. Because I can tell you, the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, we had, I'm going to guess, 5 major campaigns that were developed between 1988 and 1998. 5 major campaigns. And where did they come from? The field. They came from volunteers starting an event. You know, there was a group in a small town in Wisconsin that said, let's have a night walk and let's carry illuminated balloons in honor of everyone that has cancer. And that became Light the Night, which is now a $70 million campaign. So this is why you should really have your eyes and ears open to new events, you know? So that is it for me. I'm done. And so if you want to get a hold of me, if you have any questions, if you have anything you'd like to talk to me about, there's my contact information there. As I mentioned before, I'm happy to, you know, in my consulting business, I'm happy to do, what am I happy to do? I'm happy to do it all, but I'm happy to do anything from doing an assessment of your organization, to doing a board retreat, to doing a strategic plan, a fundraising plan. I would be happy to work with anybody that wants to work with me. So with that, I'm going to give it back to Simonne.
Awesome, Frank. Thank you so much. I know there was a lot of information there. We got a few requests for the recording, which we will send out. But what we're doing something a little different this time. We actually have Jordan Patrick, who I introduced pretty briefly at the beginning of this webinar, who will be going over our events and ticketing. So take it away.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jordan Patrick. I'm the Chief Product Officer for Harness. Thank you for having me on, Simonne, and thank you for the wonderful presentation, Frank. I'm excited to announce that we'll be releasing our Harness Events and Tickets feature tomorrow, September 1st. So for all of our existing clients, thank you for your patience as we built this feature out to help provide you with events functionality in our platform. And for all new organizations, we're excited for you to check out our events and tickets, as well as the rest of our Harness Fundraising Platform. With that being said, here's a little more information about events and tickets. We'll keep this short and sweet, but we'll have more information about events in our dashboard and help center tomorrow to help give you more information about it. As a nonprofit organization, our events and tickets feature will allow you to throw various events such as physical and or virtual events, events with free or paid tickets, or a combination of both. Events with multiple tickets and the ability for supporters to purchase multiple tickets of various ticket types. You can also utilize our tickets feature for adding sponsorship opportunities and more, which I noticed that a few people would mention the sponsorships in the poll, as well as the staff member stuff. So with all these features also being desktop and mobile friendly. If you've harnessed your website, you'll also be able to display these events as pop-ups on your own website for your organization. In terms of your supporters will be able to then view your upcoming events as well as your past events. And then the singular events, they'll be able to have a standalone page or a pop-up where they can see event details, which includes information about the event, such as the title, cover photo, description, tickets, a location and map, as well as some robust sharing functionality. They'll also have the ability to cover fees and save their contact and payment information for quicker checkouts in the future, as well as being able to make donations as well. They'll also receive an email ticket receipt and be able to view their tickets in their donor dashboard and much, much more. So again, I'll try to keep it relatively short and sweet, and we're excited to share a little bit more with you tomorrow as we release things. So we'll also continue to be improving and iterating on our events and tickets features over the next several months. So please share your feedback with us and hopefully be able to add those things in the future.
Awesome. I already saw one question come in. So I know that was so much good information, such a short time. We do have some harness questions. We have some questions for Frank. So I will start with a few that came in at registration, if that's okay. For Frank, Ray from Boys and Girls Homes of North Carolina. What are the most effective special events? Frank, maybe you have some answers for that.
I do. You know, I think you have to look at the resources you have available. So I would always say that, you know, every organization has a walk, and it's one of the most basic and easy things to do if you have a broad base of support and if you have a lot of people that you can reach out to. And I once had a walk director that said, "Why do we have a walk?" And I said, "Because everybody has one, and we want to offer the opportunity to our people to come out and be able to support our cause at a walk. And it's something that everyone can do." There are a lot of other events that are great, but again, it comes down to your volunteer base and what they gravitate towards and what their skill set is. So I'm not trying to avoid the answer. It's just that it really comes down to what does your foundation look like? You know, what is your human resources in volunteers and in staff look like?
Great. I'm actually going to try to alternate here. So Jordan, one came in the chat. So actually I can answer this one. Where to find trainings for these new features? Our customer success team will actually have some help articles for our customers. We also have some information on our website, or will be tomorrow, correct, Jordan? But yeah, if you want to elaborate on a little bit more of where people can find more information.
Yeah, as Simonne mentioned, a lot of the information will be in the Help Center, as well as you'll be able to find more information on the website. The Help Center guides will start off with a lot more of the basic information for everyone to get started, and then we'll start to elaborate on those a little bit more to help you guys throw more effective events and then just really understand the tool and all the different things you can use.
Perfect. Cool. We have Megan from Suncoast Humane Society, Inc. Frank, I think for you, she wants to understand how to improve special events, timelines, and increase profit and members of the community. I know you touched on it, but maybe if you have a little more
I wanted to talk, yeah, I did see that question before, and I wanted to talk about timelines because, to me, the timeline aspect of it is key. And you can make the, greatest timeline in the world, but if you're not going to follow through and hold people accountable, it's useless. So to me, it's not about the timeline as much as it is about a system that you put in place to follow up and hold volunteers and staff accountable for the things they agreed to do on that timeline. So that's the one thing I wanted to address in regards to that question.
Perfect. Okay, I have Thomas, and if anyone wants to elaborate on any of the questions, feel free to add it in the chat or the Q&A. So Jordan, for you, Thomas from Youth for Christ USA, looks like / Mason Dixon Youth, maybe he's part of two. How to utilize Harness for special events and fundraising activities. I know you touched on it a little bit, but if you maybe want to elaborate a little bit for the people on our session.
Yeah, and when it comes to special events, I know sometimes it can be a little bit more bespoke based on the various organizations, but we've built this to be a very malleable, events and tickets feature along with the functionality. So we try to make it where it's effective for small events, large events, virtual events, physical events, as well as being able to support all those different ticket types. So we made this, first version to be very general use, so that it can be used for various events of all types. So if you have, more questions on specifics, I'd be happy to answer those.
Cool. I'm going to keep going with the questions that came in previously because I haven't seen any new ones come in. We have Kurt from Suncoast House Rabbit Rescue, and he'd like to know how to successfully plan a first big event. Frank, so this is for you.
A first, what kind of event?
First big event.
Oh, the first big event. Okay, well, it's going to start with committee. The committee is all. You can't do it by yourself. So in regards to whatever it is you choose to do, it's to start in a circle and go out and start with staff, and then your board, and then your constituents, and then look at the people that you do business with and see who you can recruit to get involved on this event. And once you get a committee going, then that's going to enable you to accomplish so much more in regards to getting sponsorship and then participants in whatever event that is.
Great. So if anyone has any other questions, Frank's information will be on the slides that will be sent out. But thank you, Frank. Thank you, Jordan, and everyone who joined us today. And thank you, Zach, for being such a good hype man on the back end. Claps for everyone.
Thank you all. I really enjoyed this. Thank you for this opportunity.
Awesome. I'm sure everyone is really grateful for all the information you shared today. So for our customers, we hope this was helpful. We hope you learned from Frank's mistakes. I think that was a great way to present some of the learning methods. For those of you new to Harness, if you want to explore what goes into building sustainable nonprofit success stories, go ahead and scan the QR code on your screen. Our team would love to talk to you. I know Zach also shared the link in the chat. It doesn't actually hyperlink, so you'll have to copy paste it. Our team, again, would love to chat with you. So this does include our presentation. We did go a few minutes over. Hope everyone learned something. And one last favor for everybody on the call, stay on for a super quick survey about our webinars. Your feedback will always make these webinars better. Thank you so much. See you guys next time.